How about I go Big Red?
2023 Big Ten Media Days are just around the corner, and I thought I'd put together a video of kind of a quick preview of each Big Ten team coming into the season. It's my chance to brush up on each team as much as it is yours. And I will be putting chapters in this video, so if you want to skip over Indiana, and who doesn't, then you can just skip to each team because you want to know more about them. You can come back throughout the season and look at it again. Please subscribe to my channel. I'd love to get to 10,000 subscribers this season. Like this video and give me some feedback and let me know what you think about the Big Ten this year. We're going to start with Illinois because we're going alphabetically, and that means we're going to start with our good buddy Brett Bielema. Bert, as we like to call him, because, he is kind of a Bert. He can be said to be nothing more than wildly successful in his first 2 seasons at Illinois. This is his 3rd season. In his first season, 2021, he went 5-7. Last year, he went 8-5, lost to Mississippi State 19-10 in the ReliaQuest Bowl. The ReliaQuest Bowl. He's been nothing short of wildly successful at Illinois. If you consider his predecessor, Lovie Smith in 5 seasons went 17-39 for a .302 win percentage. And if you look at the previous 10 seasons of Illinois football, it's 34-72 for a .320 win percentage. Bert has done an amazing job at Illinois. And he's done a lot of it with defense. And the key here for this season is that his defensive coordinator, who was considered one of the best young coordinators in the nation, Ryan Walters, went to Purdue. So can Bert find another defensive coordinator that can do as good a job? Because I think it's key to his success this season. And what do you define as success this season if you're Illinois? Well, our SB Nation Illinois blog, Champagne Room, defines that for us because they put out a neat poll. And by the masses who voted, they have defined getting to a bowl for a 2nd consecutive season as success, which, when you consider Illinois football, it's more Illinois basketball you think about. And, I think they'd be happy if Bert got to another bowl this year. So that's Illinois. The biggest issue, can Bert replace his defensive coordinator? Next up, Indiana, the Indiana Hoosiers of the Big Ten, and I'm talking about their football team. Tom Allen, head coach Tom Allen, is in his 7th year. And, he didn't too bad early on. 2019, he had a 8-5 record. 2020, during the pandemic year, they had a very successful season, which means, maybe Indiana can only be good when we're in a major crisis in the world. I don't know. They went 6-2 in 2020. 2021, they were 2-10. That's 2 wins and 10 losses. And if I remember right, they had a lot of injuries and a lot of weird things happen to them, but still horrible season for them. 2022, 4-8, a horrible season. Again, quite frankly, I was surprised that Tom Allen survived. But if you're one of the 2 or 3 Indiana football fans out there, I'd have to ask, do you really care about football? Because is this a chance this year for Tom Allen to right the ship? Because I don't think it's going to happen. Like I said, I was surprised he still has a job. What would success be for Indiana this year? Success for Tom Allen would be surviving and still having a job at the end of the season. But success for Indiana would be going 500, going 6-6 and somehow getting to a bowl game. Do I think they're going to do that? No, I really don't. If you look, things have really kind of fallen apart for Tom Allen at Indiana. I don't care for the guy, honestly. But I do think he'd make a good governor. He looks good in a suit, and he looks like he'd be a good politician just from, the smile he has and how he conducts himself. But their recruiting has kind of dropped. I mean, they're right now 67th, 62nd in the Big Ten for their 2023 class and 14th overall. That would be last in the Big Ten. Success for Indiana, Maybe it'd be going 5-7 and having a 1-game improvement over next year. But I think mostly success for Indiana would really be get to basketball season. It's time for the Iowa Hawkeyes, my favorite team. Honestly, I'll try to be as objective as possible. Coming into the 2023 season, Iowa looks like, honestly, I'd have to pick them to win the Big Ten West. They have a very favorable schedule. They have a quarterback in Cade McNamara, transfer from Michigan, and that's something that they haven't had the last 2 years. I don't know if you watched Iowa football, but my God, their quarterbacks couldn't complete a 5-yard out pattern. I know we all like to make fun of Brian Ferentz and the really lousy job review requirements he has to meet to keep his job for next season, but their offense was atrocious because they really didn't have many offensive playmakers. That may change in 2023. I think their offense will be okay, and we know that Iowa's defense is always good as long as Phil Parker is their defensive coordinator. What's the biggest storyline at Iowa? I think you'd have to, there's the Brian Ferentz, can he keep his job thing? What can they do this season? 2021, they went 10-4. They were in the Big Ten championship game, and they had a Citrus Bowl loss. In 2022, they were 8-5, and they lost the Big Ten West because of losing to horrible Nebraska at the end of the season. Had to stick that in there, don't you know? We also swept them. We, being Nebraska, swept them in basketball, which is kind of funny also. But objectively, the Big Ten West, I think Iowa wins it. Now, if they don't win it with the football team they have coming into this season, we're going to make a lot of fun of them. Success for Iowa, win the Big Ten West. Maryland football, the Maryland Terrapins, the Terps, the Turtles. What's going on at Maryland? Mike Locksley enters his 5th year as head coach, and he has shown steady improvement throughout. I think that's kind of exciting for Maryland. They quietly got to 4th place last year in the Big Ten East, or the 4th best team, and I don't think you'd think of them that way. But if you look at Locksley, let's see, 2019 he was 3-9. 2020 in the horrid pandemic season, he was 2-3. 2021, 7-6 Pinstripe Bowl win. 2022, 8-5 Duke's Mayo Bowl win. Boy, I miss the days when not everything was about a corporate sponsor. I mean, if we're going to do corporate sponsors, why not just do adamandeve.com and take the money and stop complaining? Anyway, what is going on with Maryland? Well, they have Tuila Tagovailoa. God, names are horrible for me. Honest to God, I try to pronounce these things. I literally spent 5 minutes trying to pronounce that name. It's Tua's brother. And he is one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, and I think he's exciting to watch. But Maryland really needs to take that next step. Mike Locksley needs to beat a team that counts. He needs to beat Penn State consistently, or an Ohio State or Michigan. He needs to knock Penn State down maybe into the 4th and then position and claim the 3rd position for himself in the Big Ten East. Because this is the last year of divisions, and it's only going to get tougher for everybody after this. So when you look at Maryland, can they improve? Yeah, you could not be absolutely smashed and destroyed by Michigan. That would be an improvement. But what is success? Continued improvement. Beat a team that is one of the top teams that you shouldn't beat. So I think saying that they should get to a bowl game, well, they've already done that twice. So saying 3 in a row, that's not really a huge success. It's not a huge jump for them. But if they were to beat a Penn State, an Ohio State, or Michigan and get to a much higher ranked bowl, that'd be success. And that would show that Mike Locksley is continuing to bring them up the ladder. Because like I said, the Big Ten is going to get a lot worse in competition terms after this. And Locksley has done a very good job at Maryland. I mean, if you look at their 2 previous coaches, who was it? Randy Edsall, who kind of became a disaster. And then DJ Durkin lasted 1 year. And that was an absolute disaster. And Mike Locksley has not been a disaster, and that's good for the Terps. So success, beat somebody above you, Mike, and continue your ascent. Michigan, the Michigan Wolverines. Did you know I applied to go to Michigan when I was in high school? Never intended to go there, couldn't have afforded it, but I did. It was the Winged Helmets. That did it for me when I was young, I guess. Jim Harbaugh is in his 9th year. And it seems like 9 years. They really stuck with him, and you kind of have to give credit to Michigan for staying with him because he figured it out over the long term. He's beat Ohio State 2 years in a row. What a feather in that guy's hat. When you look at the last 2 seasons of Michigan football, all you see is success. Everybody else wishes they were there. 2021, they were 12-2, lost in the playoff in the Orange Bowl to Georgia. And last year, 2022, they were 13-1 with a playoff Fiesta Bowl loss to TCU. And everybody kind of remembers how, I think, disappointing that game was for Michigan. It was shocking that TCU won the game, and then TCU went into the national title game and was competitive for about a ball of 45 seconds to a minute against Georgia. It was a really horrible national title game. I think it's pretty obvious what success means for Michigan this season. And I think they're still fully loaded, so there's no reason to expect that they should fall off. Although I'm sure Ohio State would say otherwise. Win a college football playoff game. Stay consistent, beat Ohio State, win the Big Ten, and win a college. That's a lot, now that I say that. That's a lot of things to define success. That's what happens when you get at the upper echelon. When you're down here, it's like, go to a bowl game, win a few games. Up here, it's like, climb the highest mountain, cross the stormy sea, slay the dragon. Let's go, Jim Harbaugh. Can you do it this season? Well, that'll be one of the most interesting things to watch, I think, nationally, is Michigan-Ohio State is always interesting, and it's always fun. Michigan success, win a college football playoff game. This brings us to Mel Tucker in the Michigan State Spartans. Tucker enters his 3rd season at Michigan State, and last season, 2022, was a major disappointment for them, as in 2021, they went 11-2 and won the Peach Bowl. In 2021, they lost to Purdue and Ohio State, but they beat Michigan and Penn State. Shocking times. Last season, they were 5-7. Huge drop-off for them. And the key for Mel Tucker this season is, can he prove that he belongs as Michigan State's head coach? That's kind of a nasty thing to say, isn't it? It's kind of like, yeah, man, I'm all cocky about where he's supposed to be. But I think that's what most people will be saying about Mel Tucker entering 2023, fair or not. And it's going to be a tall order for him I think the key is to get back to a bowl game this season. That would be success for Mel Tucker and Michigan State. They face a really tough schedule in 2023. They have Michigan, Penn State, and Washington at home. They have Ohio State, Iowa, and Minnesota on the road. Now, last year, they had problems getting off the field on 3rd down because their defensive secondary was terrible. And defensive line was pretty decent. And I think that's probably key for them to having success this season, is getting the defensive secondary back in shape so they can win some games enough to get to a bowl. And that's what I'm going to define for success for Sparty this season, is just get to a bowl game. And if you want to get like a bonus success, beat one of those teams you beat in 2021. Knock off somebody that you shouldn't knock off. That'd be kind of fun. And I'd cheer for you, Sparty. I would. Otherwise, we're just going to wait for basketball season again. Now we come to Minnesota. Where I live, Minnesota. It's a great state. Land of PJ Fleck and rowing your boat. Great fishing. Fun in summer. Cold in winter. Everybody knows these things. PJ Fleck, I think, is everybody's favorite coach in the Big Ten to make fun of, other than maybe Iowa, and we just hate Iowa. I don't think we hate Minnesota. We just kind of look at their coach and go, wow, could you make this more about you all the time? And he hasn't done that as much lately. I haven't seen as much PJ Fleck stuff all over the place. Does that mean he's wearing out his welcome here? No. He's done a good job as Minnesota's coach. Let's see, he's entering his 7th year. My God, has it been that long? Yes. 2021, he was 9-4 in a horrible loss to Bowling Green. It was literally one of the, by point spreads, possibly the worst in FBS Division I football history. It was terrible. And then he beat Wisconsin. And in 2022, he went 9-4. He's like Bo Pelini at Nebraska. He lost to Purdue, Illinois, Penn State, and Iowa, and there's the key. He can't beat Kirk Ferentz. There's some kind of weird dynamic between him and Captain Kirk that just... Captain Kirk owns his ass. And if you wanted to look at Minnesota, as a team, they're always going to have the same MO. They're going to run the ball successfully. They're going to get a lead. And they're going to hope to maintain that lead. I don't expect Minnesota to drop off very much this season. I think they'll still be in the same 8-9 win category. But the key for success is Minnesota and PJ Fleck is beat Kirk, will you? Beat Iowa. Get the pig back. Like I said, there's just some weird things that happen in those games where PJ Fleck just loses his mind because he wants to... Both those coaches screw with each other. You can see it during the games. It's amazing to watch. But Kirk is better at screwing with PJ than PJ is with Kirk. And that's the key for Minnesota this season. Beat Iowa. Everybody wants you to beat Iowa. Maybe not Iowans, but everybody that counts. So beat Iowa. And now Nebraska, my beloved Huskers. I'll be doing a separate video on this, complete with what I think the season looks like and what we should think about the season, because I want to tell you what to think, right? And what you should expect. Matt Rule has made every great move this offseason. That doesn't mean wins. Doesn't translate to wins. We know that by now. Nebraska wins the offseason every year. Success for Nebraska this season is getting to a bowl game. It's getting enough wins to wash the stink off of this program. And if that sounds negative, you need to do a reality check. In fact, my friend Connor Hayden over at Corn Craze did a very nice video about expectations. You should go watch it. That's Nebraska. I'll do a much more detailed video later. And now Northwestern, the team that is giving nerds a bad game. In fact, I feel like on behalf of nerds everywhere, I'm kind of nerdy, that I should file a class action lawsuit against them to go along with all the other ones. I mean, what can you say about Northwestern right now? Do you remember when Nebraska was the first team to play Penn State after their huge scandal broke? And Bo Pelini said he didn't think the game should be played because that scandal was much bigger than football. He was right. And quite frankly, in Northwestern's case, just cancel this season. Work out contract issues. But apparently, you're too fucking full of yourselves to do that. Northwestern is an absolute train wreck. And none of this is about football. They appointed their interim coach, who only just began there this year, their defensive coordinator. What's his name? David Braun. Now, I want you to think about this. This scandal broke. Pat Fitzgerald was going to get a 2-week suspension. The student newspaper blew up the story by revealing details that were really, quite frankly, kind of sad and sick. And suddenly, Pat Fitzgerald gets fired. Throughout all of this, we have not heard anything from statements from their president, and their athletic director has been nowhere to found. So the first person that will have to actually face the public after this scandal is broke is their interim coach, David Braun. Does that sound like leadership to you? Success for them this season, who gives a shit? I hope they lose every game and in every sport they ever play again. Because quite frankly, I think they should cancel their season and get their shit together. Because there's too much other things going there. Like, if it was really about hazing and we don't tolerate hazing, why didn't you fire the entire coaching staff with the exception of maybe David Braun and let him start over? I don't care if it's close to the season. I don't care if it's unfair to those players. And about the players who were hazed, apparently you didn't give a shit about them enough to let them take a break. And the ones that did the hazing, if they were regular students, any school would have put them under some kind of ethics code violation and suspended them or expelled them. So Northwestern, really, honestly, success, I don't care. Success for me for Northwestern is you lose every game ever. There seems to be a lot of angst from the Ohio State faithful for a team that's been really good for a very long time. I guess 2 losses to your biggest rival, one of the biggest rivalries in the nation, Ohio State, Michigan, 2 losses to them in a row really will do that to you. Ryan Day enters his 5th full year as coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes. Remember, in 2008, he took over kind of toward the end of the season for Urban Meyer. 2021, he went 11-2, lost to Michigan. 2022, he went 11-2 and lost to Michigan and Georgia in the playoff, 42-41. Do you remember that game? My God, it was exciting. I mean, the games between TCU and Michigan and Georgia and Ohio State were two of the most amazing football games, maybe in history. I don't know, but they were damned exciting. And Ohio State just couldn't pull it out at the end. Their defense couldn't pull it out against Stetson Bennett. And I think that's the key for Ohio State going forward, is fixing the small things that are wrong with them, which is losing to Michigan, which I guess isn't that small, and fixing their defense. Over the past few years, Ohio State has had this problem where they get into games and they have a mental problem and they start committing personal foul penalties and dumb penalties throughout the game, and they end up losing bad. So the key for Ohio State is to straighten that out, mentally perform well consistently in every game you play, beat Michigan in 2023, and beat Michigan in 2023, and beat Michigan 2023. Because I think if Ryan Day loses a third straight time to Michigan, they might fire him, because I think Ohio State is full of crazy people. A lot of teams full of crazy people. Ohio State might be at the top. Success, beat Michigan, go to the playoffs, really beat Michigan. That's all you really can say about them over and over and over, isn't it? Penn State. James Franklin enters his 10th year, and it seems like he's been there that long. He's just quietly been decent, but not great, and I think that's the problem with James Franklin at Penn State is, they're just kind of up there. They're just kind of always number 3 in the Big Ten East and number 3 pretty much in the Big Ten. So 2021, he was terrible by Penn State standards. He went 7-6 and lost in the Outback Bowl. 2022, he had an 11-2 season, had a Rose Bowl win versus Utah with losses to Ohio State and Michigan. And that's really the key to Penn State under James Franklin. He's just kind of good, pretty good. I mean, everybody in the nation will pretty much be satisfied with 11-2, but it's the same 11-2 over and over, so he's really kind of reached a stasis point, and it really needs to kind of go like this somewhere. Seriously, stop fading in big games, and the key to success for Penn State in 2023 is beat one of those two teams. Hey, maybe if you go on 11-2 and you lose to, I don't know, Purdue and Iowa or some scuddy team, people will go, well, at least that's different. But stop losing to Ohio State and Michigan over and over and over. He has a lot of returning starters, 8-8 on both sides of the ball, but he needs to just put that thing together where he gets over the hump that we talk about, get over that Ohio State-Michigan thing. So success for Penn State in 2023, beat Michigan or beat Ohio State. Purdue football. Purdue reached new heights, really, kind of with Jeff Brom, who won the Big Ten West last year and played well against Michigan, I think much better than anybody expected in the Big Ten championship game. And then Jeff Brom left and said, well, I've reached the pinnacle of what I can do here at Purdue. And he went back to his home of Louisville. And in his place, Purdue hired Ryan Walters, the defensive coordinator at Illinois. Walters is 36 years old, one of the youngest coaches in FBS football. And I think he's a good coach. I think Purdue made a really good hire. Quite frankly, I'm kind of surprised Walters went to Purdue, but maybe you see something I don't. Like gobs of money, bags of cash that you get in the Big Ten for coaching, no matter what school you're at. Even Northwestern, that crap hole. You have to look at Purdue, and you have to look at through the eyes of Purdue fans. There are some football fans at Purdue. I know some. And you have to look at what they had before Jeff Brom was there, and that was Danny Hope and Daryl Hazel. And I didn't write down the records because I didn't want to be horrified, but they were terrible, really terrible. So if Ryan Walters can come into Purdue and recruit decently and have somewhat success and get them to bowl games consistently, I think that will be enough for Purdue football fans. They'll be more than happy with that. Then they can wait for basketball season where their number 1 team in the nation loses in horrible fashion in the first round of the March Madness playoff, because that's fun. March Madness tournament. Purdue basketball. My God, what a horror show. You don't even think about Purdue football when you're thinking about that. Purdue football success, Show that you can coach, I think, in the first year. I want to say get to a bowl game, but I don't even think that would do it. Just don't go like 2-10 or 3-9. Maybe 5-7 would be a good year for them. Purdue, go 5-7 with a new coach, Ryan Walters. Rutgers football. Rutger. I did one of my history videos about the beginning of American football in 1869 being the first game in college football history between Princeton and Rutgers. And in that video, I stated it was all downhill from there. And really, if you look at the history of Rutgers football, it really wasn't that big of an exaggeration. I didn't really write down their records because, I don't know, it's not really... What are they doing over there? Chris Ash was their previous coach, and every time I watched Rutgers football, I just felt sorry for the guy because he looked like he was in living hell. He looked like a guy who wanted to constantly weep on the sideline. And it was terrible to watch. So Rutgers went out and hired the guy that'd been successful there before, that Shiano dude, and he's there as the coach. They went 4-8 last season, and I don't know if I expect anything. You know what success for Rutgers would be this season? If they went 5-7. Maybe they can make a bowl game this year, but probably not. I realize this is kind of a useless preview, but fits the team. I don't mean to be that rude. Wait, yes, I do mean to be that rude to Rutgers. Wisconsin. Here's a fun fact about Wisconsin. Everybody knows about the beer and brats consumption in the state of Wisconsin. I've worked with there a lot, and I always call Wisconsin the happiest state in the nation because every place you eat is a bar, and every bar is a place to eat. And you don't have to go far for either. But here's a fun fact about Wisconsin. They consume 50% of the world's brandy. That's a lot of brandy. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. It sounds impressive, though. Their football team, on the other hand, Paul Chryst fired. Shocking to many, unless you were paying attention to going on. It just looked like Paul Chryst really didn't have any interest in coaching anymore. Recruiting was going to hell. And I think Wisconsin's at a place where they're kind of like, you know what, we've been pretty good, but not great for a long time now. And we would like to be great, Paul. Could you get us to great? And Paul was like, And then they said, the hell with you, Paul. Put Jim Leonard in place in the interim. And then said, the hell with you, Jim, which I think surprised and shocked a lot of people too, and went out and hired Luke Fickell. If you looked at the coaches that were available for hire, or the coaches you could have got, I think in Nebraska, I'm happy that we got Matt Rule, certainly because of the offseason and what he's done so far. But Luke Fickell, I think, for Nebraska would have been a really good hire. I just think Luke Fickell's got his poop together. And it's going to be interesting at Wisconsin because everything we see and hear about them is that they're going to the air raid. And I don't think they can get away from their running the football that much. The roots that made them good, just because it's the Big Ten. But when you look at Wisconsin and what they're doing, they're recruiting in 2023, let's see, 47th. They were 10th in the Big Ten in the recruiting ranking. But in the transfer portal, they got 4-star quarterback Tanner Mordecai. I think everybody is excited to see that guy play. I certainly am. Graham Mertz was supposed to be the savior, and he really just didn't pan out at all, to be nice to him. They will have good running backs, and they brought in some really quality receivers. And the key for Wisconsin is really going to be that transition and how fast they can make it. So success for Luke Fickell at Wisconsin, I think their ceiling is very high. Because when you look at other coaches that you kind of look at and you go, who's going to win the Big Ten West? You kind of look at Minnesota and go, can't beat Kirk Ferentz. They're not going to win the Big Ten West. They're going to be good, but not win the Big Ten West. Kirk, there's that Brian Ferentz offensive coordinator thing, and you kind of know what you're getting with Kirk. His ceiling is never going to be, I don't think, high enough to win the Big Ten. And when the divisions go away, I think Iowa's going to get left behind somewhat, and left behind because things are changing in college football. You look at the other Big Ten teams and Big Ten West teams the last year of the division, you think, who else's ceiling is high? Matt Rule, if he gets his crap together and can pull a team together at Nebraska. Why not? I'm not even being biased. Probably am, but I think Matt Rule's ceiling is very high because he's been able to do it in the past. He's been able to take teams and make them very good in their second year, though. Luke Fickell, though, I think at Wisconsin and what Wisconsin has done in the past, what Wisconsin is capable of, Maybe Luke Fickell is that coach that can go, we were good. We want to get to great. I got to get my camera in here. Got to get to great. I think Luke Fickell can do that for Wisconsin. It's going to be very interesting to watch what happens this season. So I am going to set the bar very high for Wisconsin. I have a lot of respect for Wisconsin. My mother was a native of Rice Lake, and when I was growing up as a kid, we got the Rice Lake, Wisconsin newspaper every week, and all I got to see was people holding pictures of big fish. So I grew up loving Wisconsin for reasons the big fish, I guess. Northern pike all the time, forever. But Wisconsin, the bar is high. Success for you, win the Big Ten West. First season under Luke Fickell. Is that too high a bar? I don't think so. That's a quick Big Ten preview for you, kind of a rundown of each team, what I think is success for each one of them. I hope you enjoyed it. I would love to get to 10,000 subscribers this year on CornNation, so please subscribe and tell your friends to subscribe and tell your neighbors and tell anybody. Maybe take a sign out, wear it somewhere on the street in high traffic areas. But thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and the season is almost upon us, and it will be fun this year. I promise it will be fun. Go Big Red.